And good afternoon. I am Steve Ferreira, also known as the lapel pin guy. And I can't resist. Hal opened the pod bay doors. I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that. I was going to play the 2001 Space Odyssey theme today, but I worried about my LinkedIn stream, my YouTube streaming, and my LinkedIn streaming. And in terms of getting the things copyrighted, I think that is a slippery slope, right? So we'll go with just my bad impression of the HAL 9000 from Space Odyssey as we start to think about today's interesting discussion on SpaceX and the amazing accomplishments of American and obviously the world technology, as today's live stream is about the ocean components that have gone into SpaceX and the Dragon spaceship. Now, a few kind of disclaimers as we get started. Certainly, this is not an all-inclusive discussion of every component or foreign manufacturer, because obviously there are multi dimensions to the supply chain involved in such a terrific accomplishment like SpaceX. However, like many things in the domain of Tesla and other importers, there's much to learn about big data in terms of what we can see vendors doing across the supply chain. So I think that with that said, it gives us a good idea what type of materials are coming into SpaceX. And some are very surprising. And I think that ocean freight does play such an important role in the supply chain. And to celebrate at an event like, the Americanism spirit of space exploration and how ocean freight plays in, is certainly an accomplishment to everyone involved in the supply chain and to our brave men and women in NASA Aerospace, and our thanks to SpaceX itself. So let's get started. I wanted to kind of make it a quick show today, but take you through some data that I think was highly relevant. And as we start to look at the environment in SpaceX, and I will take you through the best way I know how to do that. So let's get started with. I was going to eliminate that background, but I think that is a good enough read right now for you. So this helps us to understand the environment that SpaceX has in terms of ocean freight, outstanding materials that have come in over the past few months for SpaceX. And so I've kind of listed there in the columns by vendor, by location, the material, which ocean vendors have participated. And then I have the websites delineated for each of the vendors, so you get a feel for what's happening in terms of each vendor. So I think that what we wanted to do, or what I'd like to do today, is take you through a couple of key vendors, and we'll go forward from the standpoint of that perspective. So if you look at kind of up top, you see Quintus Technologies in Sweden. You see them a couple times. They have gas exhaust tube and fan, external cooler and floor wall assembly for the SpaceX program, high pressure technologies. And some of these are obviously very large shipments because they move break bulk on Wallenius shipping lines from Sweden. So, but let's take a quick look at the website for Quintus to get a kind of a feel for the types of products that they have. And so as I transition to the screen share for Quintus, you will see that you have the Quintus Technologies and sheet metal pressing applied for the aerospace industry. And they're very much into aeroframe technology, liquid fluid cell press supplier. So obviously very high in composite materials for aluminum skins, obviously something that would be involved in space flight. So I thought this was very telling, that Quintus in Europe, let me just check the location again, in Sweden, was a very important vendor for the program. I think another one that's really interesting. I think you guys will get a kick out of this. Is if we go back to the to kind of the screen share, um, you look at the vendor, um, Gerling Holtz Handles in Germany, kind of the fourth one from the bottom. And what you have there is dinitrogen tetroxide, which I had to look it up in Wikipedia myself to get a good feel for it. But it's something that the Russians got involved with years ago, and I'm going to talk to you about exactly what that product is here. Let me just take the banner off of the screen here. Be better for viewing. And now I will share the screen on that particular unusual product. So what you know this product as is, there you see it there, it's rocket propellant. So the rocket propellant is a subproduct that has come in on ocean freight. Evidently, it was used on Apollo Soyuz missions. So it's interesting that the material dinitrogen tetroxide is also being used by SpaceX. But I think more importantly that this material obviously probably would never be allowed on a cargo airliner. So it's interesting that it comes in by ocean freight. And again, this comes out of Germany, and Hapag-Lloyd has been involved in quite a few of these movements. Although I must admit, a lot of the vendors are segmented, and there doesn't appear to be a huge, let's say, loyalty towards one vendor or another. Now, some of these movements for SpaceX may have come in prepaid versus collect, and so on and so forth. But there is interesting dynamic in terms of looking at the disbursement of products coming in from Europe as opposed to Asia, at least from the perspective of looking at it kind of geometrically on what's in ocean. So if you look at the locations, you see, pretty much other than one China shipment that I picked up on, a lot of European participation. So the couple more to go, and I think you guys will find this really interesting. So one of the things that I loved from Apollo 13 is there's one scene where Tom Hanks is checking out the movement of the Saturn booster to the launch pad, and it's moving on the crawler, the huge tractor. Well, guess what? So SpaceX also has their own crawler tractor. I'm sure it's a little bit of a different version than the huge behemoths for the Saturn V. But one of the things that I found, if you look in this particular slide I made for you today, is there's a company here called Strickland Tracks, the fifth from the bottom, and it's in the UK, and they make the crawler track system. Again, this came in full containers. It probably had to be assembled. But let me have you take a quick look at this track system. I think you'll find this highly interesting. I know I certainly did, because again, I'm a space junkie, and to me it was just a great thing. So here's the track system, and this website kind of changes images quite a bit, but you see there in this kind of shot. There you go. There's actually a shot of the tractor itself. It's not really a full screenshot, almost as if they're cloaking it a little bit. But this is that crawler that is used to move the product to the launch pad. Absolutely fascinating stuff, right? Because that's a great view of it. I love that. There you go. That's the money shot there. So let me stop sharing that, and I wanted to go back and share the next one for you, because to me, and I started thinking, this is incredible. This is only breaking news you find. By the way, I'm Steve Ferreira. This is OK Boomer Live is the show, my episode, OK Boomer TV. We're doing an episode today on the ocean freight components of SpaceX. And I found the next one kind of like something that, will get picked up in Wall Street Journal or I don't know, some publication that this company is somewhat involved. Again, the scope of what they're involved in, I don't know, but I do know they're participating. And just the fact that they're participating and the name brand they are will blow you away. So here we go. I will share that with you now back on the chart. Some of you already might have caught a peek preview of it. So if we look at the screen share again on SpaceX, one of the things that you'll see there is right above the tractor, the Strickland tracks is Airbus. Airbus, right? Repeated again, Airbus. So Airbus in the UK division, involved with aircraft test, propulsion test equipment. And this was HAPAG. And what's really interesting is that for those that don't know what SOC means, is that these came in on shipper-owned containers. So these are Airbus containers, ocean containers that Airbus uses for their projects. And it was just fascinating to see. This was a huge move. I say huge, 6 to 10 containers in one invoice. And so one of the things I want to show you about Airbus, this is a special division. It's almost like the Cloak and Dagger division. As a matter of fact, let me just share with you that particular tab, and I think you guys will kind of get my meaning on that. I thought when I saw this is like it was just like, first off, this is the Airbus screen for it's called its location in the UK called Stevenage, and what we do here is Airbus Defence and Space Team focus on advanced satellite and systems for telecom and Earth observation, delivered through Skynet 5 constellation. These services meet the needs of military, government users like NATO. So it's really heavy duty stuff. And again, so this is the thing I wanted to talk about. It was such a secret part of Airbus. It was actually used in the Spy Game film with Robert Redford, and filmed in Stevenage and Brad Pitt. So I thought that was pretty cool. But the fact that Airbus is involved in SpaceX, I think that's noteworthy in the Wall Street Journal or New York Times. So media, let's get on. Let's cite that on OK Boomer, Steve Ferrer. So let me take you to probably one of my favorites, and I don't know how well I'm going to pull it off because there's just a lot of moving parts with SpaceX, obviously. So let me stop sharing this part of it, and I want to go back to the main sheet, the main list of vendors that I put together. Again, keep in mind it's not a full list, but I think one of the things that you find here is the next to the last, a vendor called Hawick Plant Auctions in Germany and Scotland and the UK. Rig thrusters, it's oil rig technology, done for the oil rig industry that SpaceX is using for their drone ships where the boosters land on. So a little bit of explanation on this on Hawick. So Hawick's like a global trading company. And I think that's one of the things that's really interesting about Hawick is that I think they just go out and they source, industrial type products all through Europe. And, this is just one of those unusual products that SpaceX or SpaceX agent tasked, procurement with, and Hawick obviously came through. But these shipments were extremely, again, the size of them was stunning. I mean, next to the Airbus shipments, these are equal in terms of the amount of containers that they took. And again, keep in mind, this is kind of a micro program. So we're not talking about hundreds of containers here, but, we're talking about, I don't know, maybe 100 containers total in the last 12 months for SpaceX, just to give you some idea of the scale. But certainly 10 of those were these rig thrusters. And so I had a real hard time. I mean, I understand kind of like, how precise these rig thrusters, these drone ships, autonomous drone ships, right? You saw it on the news yesterday when it came down and, it landed perfectly. You see how those work. Um, but I didn't kind of understand the technology. So I found this on YouTube, and I'll just play you a short clip. I think it's just fascinating, and I think I can pull it off. And again, I won't use any audio here. I don't think it's necessary, but let me share with you these rig thrusters. So what you're seeing on the screen is you're seeing the ship come in, and it's going to start to lay these rig thrusters. So there's the rig thrusters now coming down to provide the stability for the small moves that the drone has to make, the drone ship has to make. So the rig thrusters, this is just a rig thruster replacement, but again, it gives you some kind of indication in terms of what's happening on those rig thrusters. So I thought that was a fascinating look in terms of how and why SpaceX went with the oil industry technology. They hybrided it into their own, drone recovery program to stabilize those ships. Obviously, they have to make so many fine moves for precision. So that's a little bit of an overview that I thought would help you guys. But yeah, I know that's like the Ginsu knives. Don't stop here. Buy two, get one free. Listen, this is important. Not to be outdone, Jeff Bezos. Yes, Amazon guys, are you listening? Jeff Bezos' company, Blue Origins, is also in the space business. Now, I don't know what's happening with their plans for launching anytime soon, but I do know in the last month and a half, they've been very active with bringing in one type of commodity. So let's talk about Blue Origin for a second as a bonus, and then we'll conclude our program for today. But let me share with you a little bit on Blue Origin's activities and help you understand a little bit about what they are doing and to what extent. So Blue Origin, obviously nowhere near close to the velocity of shipments of space exploration, but Blue Origin does have a couple vendors in Germany on storage systems and lift systems, which are very fascinating. And it looked to me that similar to the way that you might set up a fulfillment system or a racking system. It appears that these are both full container load, shipments, 4 or 5 containers, I think so far. But I think a look of handle system will give you the level of sophistication. So obviously in the rocketeering business, right? I remember watching the Bruce Willis movie when they were on the Comet trying to blow it up. And there was a comment about that pardon me, space shuttle has something like 3 million moving parts. So I guess with the amount of moving parts, you need a heck of a storage system. And these German babies are something to behold. So let me give you an inside look at what Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin company is doing as far as those sophisticated systems are concerned. So I think that the systems, and this is really probably a good view of it. They're both very similar systems. So I'll only show you the ones from Hanel, the German vendor. They're both German vendors. But this view on the left here, you can actually see it in motion. Gives you a really good view in terms of how to protocol storage and on-demand parts. So I'm not saying that this is the system that Jeff Bezos's Blue Origins has purchased, but you get the idea of just how sophisticated a type of German precision engineering it is on these systems. So I can only imagine that SpaceX would have something similar, although, what I do is a bit of an art and a science, so it's always difficult to be 100% precise on these materials. So I think that, what I would what I would suggest, let me just stop the sharing on this. Um, what I would suggest on the process is that Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, obviously two different directions. Musk has pulled it off with SpaceX, and we've had the great moments where the system, where the project has almost gone error free. And obviously, multiple vendors go into building a space shuttle or a Dragon or SpaceX and the like. And it's interesting to see the Chinese insulation coming in. It's interesting to see the test products that are used, the Airbus component, and it helps to give you a very interesting perspective. I should say one important thing I forgot to say is that it was really interesting in looking at some of the vendor data. Sometimes when you get ocean freight intelligence, it will say, proprietary or, secret or classified. This one actually had on one of the vendors, they call the project, SpaceX, quote unquote, project Orion, like the star. So I thought that was a very creative way to say, it's a project for SpaceX, just call it Project Orion. Again, that's just what one of the vendors called it. So I thought it was really interesting. And I think that I hope you're enjoying these kind of segments from my OK Boomer live episode TV show here. By the way, streaming on LinkedIn. I'm one of 500 out of 250 million that have the privilege right now to broadcast, or 500 active broadcasters. I think the number is a little higher, but I think there's 500 of us. I'm also streaming live on YouTube. Now, again, this is my way. I love the opportunity to give more color to my brand. My current business is, of course, Ocean Audit, and I love what I do, and I have the best clients in the world. And certainly returning money to companies that overpay on ocean freight is always going to be my number one love. And it's just so special to be able to have a great audience like you guys and talk about, me as a 59-year-old boomer that's working in a millennial and next gen world. So as a matter of fact, that's the nice segue into my segment on Thursday. I'll be covering actually 6 interesting ways where millennials in ocean freight can help change the dynamics of the ocean freight industry, or at least make it very interesting and colorful. Because let's face it, when you get beyond container cranes, trains and ships and ports and undocking and lifting on and lifting off, really in the last 60 years, not a lot of new innovations in container shipping. I've researched 6 that I think millennials are ready to take over. They're not going to change the world, but they'll sure put a lot of fun and interest in, I think, the dynamic opportunities that most people are looking for outside of the silly thing called blockchain, right? That probably will never really work for ocean. I get a lot of haters on that. But listen, guys, this has been just a great overview on SpaceX. You can watch this on demand on OK Boomer Live TV, on YouTube. Just send me a message in LinkedIn if you want a link. If you can't find it, follow me, please, on LinkedIn. Subscribe on YouTube, and we'll bring you better and stronger content as our channel continues to mature and grow. Let me know what kind of episode ideas you're interested in. You can go to linkedinlive.tv or okboomerlive.tv and send me your episode ideas. And I love guests. So if you're a top 100 or top 1,000 influencer, thinker, doer in supply chain, logistics, transportation, ocean freight, social selling, I would love to consider having you on OK Boomer. We'll have a lot of fun. We'll grow the channel. We'll be authentic. So for now, signing off from the Hartford, Connecticut area, I'm Steve Ferreira, the lapel pin guy. Have a great day. And thanks for joining in today on our exciting discussion on SpaceX. Cheers.